and anxiety, depression, and everything, just like you say. But what really triggers suicide? I want us to measure there, most especially. Because we've seen this in the army, we've seen people shooting others and they shoot themselves. What really triggers that? Is it also mental disorder, madness? What triggers?
We wouldn't use the word madness here, because that's a very stigmatized term.
Okay.
It's actually illness. When we speak about suicide, suicide is the intentional act of killing oneself. So someone who, aims to end their life. And oftentimes this is as a result of severe mental illnesses. Most commonly depression. Many times when people are severely depressed, you see, like I mentioned, depression is a mood disorder. So these people do not see any value in themselves. They hate themselves. They don't like themselves. They do not see anything positive in themselves, anything positive in the world, anything positive in the future. Because again, like I mentioned, the illness affects how you think, affects how you feel. So these people feel like there is no point in being alive. There's no point in continuing feeling very negatively, feeling very sad. And as a result, they end up making the decision to end their lives. So most commonly, this we will see in severe depression. Again, like I mentioned, it's an illness. These people are sick. They need treatment. If it's identified early, it's something that can be prevented. But it's a very common thing that happens if this depression is not treated. It becomes very severe to the point where this person does not see any need for them to continue living, and they may make the decision to end their lives. It can also happen in other conditions, such as who are psychotic. They are hearing voices that are commanding them to do things. So they might have these hallucinations that will command them to kill themselves, and they might end up doing that. Or others feel, again, because like I mentioned, it changes the way that they think. They may think that they are a burden to society, or they may think that society is out to get them. People are trying to, what we call paranoia. They feel that, they're being attacked from the environment, and under such they may end up, getting these delusions and these false beliefs that the right thing for them to do is to end their lives. So suicide is a very complex issue for us to discuss. It's something that needs to be addressed, talked about, and treated. It's an illness, and it's something we need to address.
Really could be what triggers this?
Like I mentioned, it's an illness. So with depression, for example, because of the changes in the way the person thinks and the way the person feels, which can result from one, environment in which they are, the things that they've gone through, what we call negative life events. Some of the stories that you commonly hear, probably they've lost a lot of their property, or if they've gone through some very stressful, distressing events. This will lead to a change in the chemistry within their brain, and that will change how they feel. They're probably feeling very sad, feeling a lot of inappropriate guilt, even for things that really is out of their control. And as a result, they're going to also start to think that probably they are the problem. They would think that there's no hope, there's no reason for them to keep trying, and that eventually will lead to them, making that false, getting these false beliefs that we call delusions, and then making the decision to end their lives. Yeah, so it's a very complex thing. It's not really as simple as one thing happens and then I commit suicide. It's really a very complex, framework of things that will happen from the time one is maybe gets depression or has a psychotic disorder to the point when they commit suicide. So it's not something that happens overnight. It's probably something that they've been contemplating for a long period of time. And oftentimes, maybe what I think would be important for us to talk about, people will start to actually talk about it. There was a very, I think this went around on the airwaves quite a bit, a certain gentleman who for many weeks had been posting on his social media that he didn't feel a point in living. He was contemplating suicide. He thought that the world was better without him, and he would post these things on his social media for weeks. on end, and people would ignore it. People would, laugh about it, and they would make memes about it, and they would keep joking about it. They thought he was, just trying to make fun. But eventually, one fateful day, he killed himself. And you see, so it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that happens, over a long period of time. Someone is contemplating this, and they'll probably talk about it, and they'll try to do different things, to try and find a solution. And if they are not attended to, if this is not addressed properly, unfortunately, it might end up in them committing suicide. So it's not really something that happens spontaneously. It's not something that happens overnight.
Yes, sir. You say it doesn't happen overnight. That means it's a constant, consistent, recurring idea. Now, my question are there symptoms to this that we can look on and like, I'm seeing something and I need to deal with this?
Yes, very true. First and foremost, the people will talk about it. Yeah. So you will notice that someone starts to talk about, things to do with death. Someone says, maybe I think life is not worth living. I think I'm better off being away from here. So first, it will be an idea. So when you listen, and I always encourage people to not only hear but listen. So you notice someone wants you to start to talk about it, and when they start to talk about it, don't take it for granted. Please act. Please, reach out and sit down and have conversations with people, and ask them why do you think this way? Why do you think that no one loves you, or why do you think that the world hates you, or why do you want to end your life? So first it's an idea, and then gradually it will come into the way they act and the way they behave. They will start to keep to themselves. They will start to the activities they usually love, the work that they usually do, they will start to fall back on their productivity. They will stop interacting as they used to. So you find people are very angry, they're very sad, they keep to themselves. Oftentimes they may even start to abuse substances. So they'll start drinking excessively or using other psychological drugs, marijuana and the like. And so all these different patterns of behavior, they start to change. They get very angry. Some will even begin to cut themselves, what we call self-injurious behavior. And all this will gradually point to a particular direction. You want to be very keen to, first and foremost, listen and then observe the behavior. If you notice someone whose behavior has suddenly changed from what we know, what we are used to, then that's something that needs to be looked into further.
When we notice this in our relatives and our friends, what do we do?
Once you've noticed, one, you want to be very supportive, not to be judgmental. You want to embrace them, I would say. Show them a lot of love and care. Try to listen to them, and then to reassure them. Reassure them that they are loved. Reassure them that they are wanted. Reassure them that there's a place for them here, and that we care very much for them. That's one. And then two, you want to link them with a professional who can be able to help. Try to get them in touch with the mental health care facility, get in touch with a psychiatrist or a psychologist who can then be able to make the accurate diagnosis and set them on the treatment. But the first and most important thing is for us to be warm and welcoming. That's what I would say. Don't be judgmental. Try to listen and try to give them as much love and consolation as you can. And most importantly, do not be judgmental, because many times that's what most people will rush to. How dare you? What do you think about yourself? No, the most important thing is to be very understanding, to recognize that these people are hurting and they are sick and unwell, and for any sick person, what they need is love and care and understanding. That's the most that we can do for them, and then link them to the professionals who will be able to give them the care and the treatment that they need.
Now, when someone is sick, we rush them to the hospital, and maybe someone is struggling with bones, you go look for an orthopedic or a heart and neurologist. Where do we find psychiatrists, just in case?
So psychiatrists are part of the day-to-day healthcare system. So you should be able to find them in most of the healthcare centers that you go. Tabika National Regional Referral Hospital is National Mental Health Referral Hospital. There are psychiatrists there. We have psychiatrists in Mulago at the Bosa Mental Health Clinic. We have psychiatrists in most of the big hospitals around now. Of course, the number of psychiatrists in the country is still very small. We barely 100, so there are still very few scattered all over the country, and so we don't have that many. But we are hoping that in the few years to come, the number will go up. But if you went to most of the hospitals today, you should be able to have at least a clinical psychiatric officer who can be able to attend to most of the conditions, or a psychiatric nurse. I think every health center in the country should have at least a psychiatric nurse and a psychiatric clinic officer. That's what the government ideally should be having. So most places do. Unfortunately, some do not have these professionals available, and we can only hope and pray, and of course lobby with the state to see that more of these people will be employed and deployed all over the country, because the need is very, very, very big.
Okay, Doctor, before we talk about the preventive measures or management, we've seen recent cases of suicide in children. Where do children get depression from? And why would a child be depressed? Is a child is not responsible for any bills or nothing, so why would they be?
My professor always told us when we were learning that if you have a brain, then you can get mental illness. So it's not dependent on the age or your income status or your tribe. This is something that is going to affect all of us across the board, irrespective of age or tribe or income. So children also do get depressed. Children also do, mental illness. And so that's not something that we should rule out. We have to pay as much attention to them as we do to anyone else. So children also do get depressed, and if it's not addressed, they can also end up with the severe forms of it and also committing suicide. So even for children, we have to be listening to what they're saying. We have to pay attention to how they feel. We have to pay attention to what they're thinking. We have to pay attention to how they're behaving, because many times we think that for a child, as long as you've given them food and shelter, that's enough for them. No, not necessarily. We have to pay attention not only to their physical health, but to their mental health as well. The way that we relate with them, the way that we love and care for them, that we listen to what they have to say, we pay attention to that. It's definitely going to help. So yes, the mind, from the time that you're conceived and from the time that you're born, your mind is active and it's interacting, and therefore it's at risk also of developing these kinds of illnesses. So important for us to pay attention to the mental health of children, not only their physical health.
So preventive measures, Doctor, is there anything we can do to prevent these challenges, disorders or illnesses or suicide?
Yes, it's important. Prevention is better than cure, as we've always said. Of course, like I mentioned, when we talk about mental health disorders, it's a very wide bracket, and each of those would have specific preventative mechanisms or tactics, and also the management is specific to what exactly we are treating at this particular point in time. But I'll just speak broadly when we talk about the mind. The best ways for you to protect your mind and to keep in good health. One, very important for you to have enough sleep. So sleep at least 6 to 8 hours every night, very important. It allows for us to rejuvenate the mind and the brain. Very important for us to eat well and eat healthy, have a balanced diet, are what we eat, and a lot of the chemicals that help the mind to run will come from the food that we eat. So important for us to eat well and eat healthy and eat on time. It's important for us also to do physical exercises. So to spend at least minutes doing exercises is also very important for your mental health as well, because these chemicals that are produced actually allow the mind to be refreshed, if I may say. So sleep, nutrition, exercise, very key. Important for us to have what we call meaningful relationships. So to have a support system of people that you can actually relate with, you can share with. Like I mentioned, many of these things are gradual and they grow over time. So it's important that when I start to have challenges, I have someone I can share them with, someone I can actually be able to discuss what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and that person can be able to support me, to encourage me, to reassure me. So important to have what we call meaningful relationships, people that you can relate with. It can be family, it can be friends, but the better the support system around you, the better your mental health is going to be. So meaningful relationships is very important. And finally, finding meaning. Finding meaning and purpose in life, something that you believe in, that you're devoted in. That's something that also helps to keep us resilient, to keep us pursuing something that we believe. So important to always find meaning in work and meaning in life, something that you can be passionate about, you can be devoted in. So those 5 things I would say are what we call the big 5, or the preventative measures generally to keep your mind in check. But again, if you're struggling, it's important to always go and seek that help and the right care that can allow you to get back on your feet as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Agaba. We're talking about the increasing mental health disorders or illnesses in the country.
If I just jump in there, like you mentioned, it's been increasing. And one of the reasons that we can say has contributed to that is the breakdown in our social ties to the community. You might have realized nowadays people are more and more to themselves. We are living more individually. Everyone is living in a gated community. People don't quite spend time with each other, or people don't have any meaningful friends. With the age of social media, all we do is like and follow. People on Twitter and Instagram. We no longer have conversations, real conversations. We don't have that support system. It's breaking down, and that's why again you see more and more people are tipping off the edge. So it's one of the things that's contributed greatly to the increasing burden of mental illnesses, that breakdown in our social ties and community bonds.
That means, Doctor, we really need to resurrect the social life as opposed to social media, because what happens that this one has becoming everyone's wife, husband, best friend, sister, brother, and this one comes with a lot of challenges. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah. So it's important for us to have actual connections. These devices are good. They should help us to connect with people. But what they have done now is create a wall around us, and people are more and more into themselves, which is very unfortunate and very sad. People are no longer being honest about what's going on in their lives, not actually, speaking up. Many times they'll have a client come to me and they're struggling, and you'll ask, who knows about what's going on in your life? And the honest answer is no. I'm going through this alone, or I feel alone, and that's really unfortunate and very sad.
So that means that social media has also woodwinked us, thinking that once I have my social media, I have my friends who I follow, that is it.
It's not enough.
Okay. Doctor, what would you be one of your last for parents? Because now kids are in holidays, and the parents are busy. They are up and about, and we've seen cases of suicide in children. So, any words for the parents there? Because their parents have bought gadgets, they've bought TV, so kids all the time, they're on TV, they have their gadget, they have their tabs, and every parent, I need to get a tab for my child. What words for the parents out there?
Parents need to spend time with their children. Make time to talk to your children. Make time to listen to them. Most importantly, listen to them. The culture of parenting has been that we talk at children. We don't talk with our children. And then you don't listen. You don't know what's going on in their minds. You don't know what they're struggling with. You don't know what challenges they have. And therefore, you can't help. Many times, by the time you come to realize that something is going on, it's too late. And that's very unfortunate. It's important as parents that we get to know our children, that we become friends of our children. That's how we put it. have a relationship with your child that goes beyond you buying things for them. They need you more than any of the gadgets that you're going to buy for them. What they really need is you. They need to feel your love. They need to feel your presence. They need to learn from you. So during this time of the holidays is the best time for parents to spend time with their children, get to know them, listen to them. I would want to emphasize that. Please listen to your children. They will tell you what's going on in their lives, and do not dismiss it. Don't think that it's inconsequential. No, you want to listen to them, and then give them the advice and give them the encouragement that they need. More than anything, they need to hear you and to spend time with you. So that's the advice I'd give to parents. It can be very painful, and we've seen this many times. By the time a child is being brought into the hospital, who is suicidal, who has attempted suicide, and the parents are in shock. But again, these children have been trying to communicate it, and unfortunately, they've not been given the opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much.
I was a patient who had been writing in her diary for years, wow, how she was tired of life and did not feel the love of her mom and her dad. Again, these were very corporate people. They would leave at 6 in the morning, they come back at 10. So she felt alone, she felt unwanted, and so she'd been writing in her diary for years about how life was meaningless for her. Not until she attempted to commit suicide, and then that's when they brought her into the hospital, and her parents are blaming her and they are shaming her. And that was not helpful. And all she wanted was to spend time with them and feel their love. And so parents, please listen to your children, spend time with your children. You can make a big difference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dennis Agaba, for joining us on Skype on tackling the increasing rate of mental health disorders. Thank you so much. Thank you. For those who've been watching, we've been Dr. Dennis Agaba there discussing the increasing rate of mental disorders. Chintumte Sasida Senior is my name. Thanks for joining. Until we meet again tomorrow, sometime, someplace. Bye. Take care.
Focus on Healthy Morning.